things you didn't think about. So although you probably answered this very specifically in there, I am still going to ask you to just reflect on the lesson and how it compared with what you had planned and how it turned out.
In a whole, the lesson took a lot longer than I had been expecting. From day 1 to day 2 to day 3 today, I was hoping they would have been at the point of writing their stories, and not everybody is in their organizer yet.
Okay.
I do feel like they got it. Like, I feel like they're really secure with temporal words. They know what those are now. I think they know how to use them, but I haven't been able to actually see them apply them yet.
Okay.
Because they're still just using the organizer, which has the sentence frame for them.
Okay.
And so not until they get to their writing do I get to actually see if they're applying it. So I made a comment about that. I feel like they were getting the idea of how to sequence their story. Most of the kids, I did put in a data thing. I just did like a tally mark as I was going around to see how the kids were getting with even just filling in their ideas of their story. And I'd say about half the class was between 1s and 2s, and half the class was like 3 and 4. That organizer is helpful for some kids. I think for some kids it's almost hindering. It's good to get a sequence down for them and to get a beginning, a middle, and an end. But some kids like to just go to their paper and just start writing, which is good and bad. It's good because they're writing, but it's not so good because they don't have an organized form, and they don't have a beginning, and they don't have a middle, and they don't have an end. So working with that, and we've only used it twice now, so it's a new organizer for them. So there are definitely going to be kids today who need to finish that part for their writing.
Okay.
That'll be my lesson today.
So your scaffolding of it, I mean, you had provided the you utilized your story, you had them at least generating the whole concept of outdoor. You felt that led them into understanding and then introducing those temporal words, that a story has a sequence. And then your next thing is that you would really like to not have them be using those organizers to just maybe be a little more free writing in a sense?
Ideally, that would be the plan. I mean, these organizers are not part of the curriculum. They are something we have been adding in because we felt it was something they needed. They were originally added just to be language supports for EL, and we realized, we're like, this isn't just EL support, it's just good scaffolded teaching for where they're all at. But getting them to use them correctly and then actually release them from the organizer to writing, they're just not there yet. So.
And you had made the comment about how thankful you were for Julia's advice in that, and your collaboration with her is obviously very valuable for working with just those kids, but also the others. And you had made the comment in your directions and had given them, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was Nora? 2 kids at the very beginning anyway. You had said, I'm giving you additional. So if I do, there's directions with those. And I tried to catch exactly how you differentiated that. So
those
can you explain?
2?
Yeah.
They were the 2 that in my quartile separating, who I had knew were above grade level and already ready, and that was something I had previously decided that I was going to be giving those 2 students in their writing that I'd observed and in their pre-assessment and their writing that I had assessed at the beginning of the quarter. That they were kind of they were my above grade level exemplars, I guess, of writing when it comes to personal narratives. So I gave them both the extended ones, but then I had personal talks with both of them later saying, if you don't want to use the whole organizer, you don't have to. It just gives you more space if you want. And they both were like, cool. That worked for them.
So they did just feel the need to they were fine and comfortable, could move forward. So as you were teaching yesterday, were there any changes you made as you were kind of noticing things about your students? Any changes to your instructional plan?
Not during the lesson, I think, as much as before the lesson, because what you saw was definitely different than what we probably talked about, because we didn't get to write at all on Monday. It was full front-loading Monday. It was all background knowledge on temporal words, activating their knowledge on what story they could tell, and then me organizing one as a model for myself with the kids. They didn't get to write it all on Monday. In the plan originally, the plan was that Monday they would have written. So that Tuesday we would have been organizing from the organizer to a story. That was the adjustment that had to be made, is that they had to go to, that was their writing time, which gave me a lot more time to float because there wasn't as much modeling of writing yesterday. Modeled it on Monday.
And your adjustments reflected when you were kind of assessing them as things were going along. You felt you made the right adjustments to continue that?
And that's, so I adjusted. I know that today I was supposed to be doing the switch to writing from the organizer, and I talked with Julia, and not all the kids are ready for that yet, but some kids are. So some kids are done with their organizer, so we're going to model it anyway. We're going to model the taking my story and making it bigger and expanding it with more details, but just part of my story so that I'm not spending a whole bunch of time modeling, and then allow the kids to go back and write. But also then meeting with those kids who still need to be working on their organizer. Because I had a
Right.
couple kids that didn't get very far in that at all.
Right.
So,
So, what did you see was the strength of that lesson that you did? What did really stuck out to you as, yes.
what really worked?
Yeah.
I definitely, I mean, it's hard because it wasn't even that lesson, but the front loading helped a lot to get them going.
Okay.
And then I also think reminding them in the beginning to turn and talk and remind them each other of what their story was. They needed that. They needed to just remember what their story was about. And the kids love sharing, so I also like giving them time at the end to share. They really, really like sharing in the teacher's like author chair, where we actually do a one-time share, and like two kids will share, and they'll take time to do questions, comments, or compliments, and they'll actually get to call on other kids to comment on their writing. We don't get as much time to do that as often, so the walk and talk was a way to let them at least get their writing out to somebody, because
Right.
they like sharing it so much.
Right.
So
And I could see that need to share in that, just in when you did the turn and talk, the excitement and the engagement that
Yeah.
your students have, and you have such a great way of calling them back
Sure.
with your call and response, or there's so many great ways you use the chime to get them to go, and there was something, it'll come to me. There was something that stuck, and it was something I hadn't seen before. And it's just, but you have that quick response with them, and they know to come
some
back
days,
to
some
it.
I mean, they're working on their, like, I definitely have some kind of stragglers when it comes to that, some chatty kids, but they know the drill and they know what's supposed to work, so that those things can happen and not take so much class time.
Yeah, your routine is definitely very well established and shows that in the kids, and just the readiness to come to group. Which brought a question to me about your grouping. Because
Yes.
you had used the term editing partners.
The editors,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when they did go back to the tables, who were they sitting by?
They're sitting by their own people, like their own
Oh,
table
okay.
mates right now.
Okay.
There will be time, which is because during their writing time they're not supposed to be talking.
Sure.
They're not supposed to, like, unless it's an editing time, which Unit 2 in this writing curriculum has the end being the first time that they actually edit a piece of writing
Oh, okay.
and do a published piece.
Okay.
And so they set up the partners in the beginning so that they will have time to work with those editors, and that's who they'll peer review with. Not yet. It hasn't started yet.
So this is kind of a beginning piece,
Yes.
getting them
It's like
comfortable
the
with
first-
that person,
Literally the first day of it.
building that relationship of trust and
Yep, so
communication.
they can feel comfortable to share their story with somebody and then hopefully take constructive criticism from
Right.
that person and give that person constructive criticism.
So, how do you feel you promote the growth mindset in your students, and especially with this kind of a lesson?
I had a student actually. We talk a lot about growth mindset here, and so we've been trying a lot, mostly with the language of understanding that something might be hard right now, and that that's okay to be difficult right now. We just haven't figured it out yet, and so we have a lot of that language and those frames that we use. We did do a lesson on it, and we have an anchor chart hanging that has to do with growth mindset, and then all of these are different like prompts of things they can say. I don't know if it's solidified in them yet, but they understand that idea of like you're not stuck, and it'll get there even if it feels stuck now. I don't know though. I mean, I personally, if there's a time where something's really hard for me, I might get in the mood where I'm like, no, this is hard, and I don't want to do it. So I can understand and have empathy for that. But I can try to talk through it, and then I'll check back in on students who are really, really stuck. I had one. I don't know if you saw. He was
Yes,
working-
I did see this one.
He's really frustrated right now because he wants to be a lot further than he is, but he's academically very low, and so he struggles with that because he has a drive which is huge, and I love that. That's new this year. Like, it's definitely coming out in him that he has this drive to want to learn, but it's just he's got big gaps to jump. And so yesterday he was really wanting to be able to do it on his own, and he was refusing help at first because he wanted to be able to do it. So he's somebody who usually works with Julia, and he didn't want to because he wanted to just show he could do it on his own. But then he came up to me after writing, and he goes, "Miss Simpson, can you help me with this tomorrow? Because I just can't do it by myself." And I was like, "Absolutely." And so he's gonna be one of my first kids that I come in conference with today, because like that asking for help and like being able to find that in himself, he knew he was hard. It was hard. He knew he was stuck, but he knew he could get there, and he knew the ways to ask for help. So.
And I even saw you trying to give him, and you were giving him various things like, the word wall, and let's help you find this word. So you were really trying to get him to that engage point. And I know Julia had even asked, nope.
Yep.
So you could see that interdependence was in his
It's in
mind.
his
I
mind,
want me
but
by myself.
He just
And
isn't
then
academically there.
was the other one Wyatt?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
And-
because I heard that conversation
Yes.
and I
He is
made
one
note
of mine that I kind of prefaced you about that has some emotional instability sometimes, and writing tends to be one of his weaker parts of the day. He
Yeah.
has a really low self-esteem to his ability to write,
Mhm.
and so this was a hard task for him. He got he had his story in his mind, but the actual sequencing of the different parts and pulling it into, he's like, I went to the park and played. And I was like, okay, well, what did you do at the park? He's like, I can't do this.
Mhm.
And I was like, just tell me something you did at the park. And so he could do that. Once he figured out that he could talk through it, he was like, oh. And then I came back and he'd gotten all the way through to the conclusion by the time I came back. So I was like, nice.
And you acknowledged that with him too. I
Yep.
heard you acknowledge it. See,
Yeah.
I knew you
Yeah.
could do it, and
Yeah.
but even he was another one that when you sat down beside him, because I think you even hugged him and went, oh, because he said no, and you go no.
I know.
So you were really trying to pull him in
Yeah.
and to really work with him and to help him get through that. So obviously there's a day through 3
Yep.
that you're continuing with.
Yes.
Anything that you saw that you did that you would want to do differently to try and progress the next piece of that lesson?
I just think they need more time. I think they need some more time to write. And some of the kids are ready, so that's why I said I'm going to let them have that modeled, moving to the next piece so that they don't feel like they're stuck and done and don't have to do anything. I just think they need more time to write.
Mhm.
And that's hard because we only have a half hour, and with the modeling and the mini lesson, it tends to be only 15 minutes if you want to get them to meet back at the end and do that.
Yeah.
And that's not a lot of writing time.
Well, and actually, because even in the pacing that I did look at, yeah, I mean, that whole group instruction, though, you don't want to minimize it because it is so valuable.
really
It was a
valuable.
15-minute part of your time, and then the individual work time, and for you to be able to get around. I noticed, you had picked up your notebook at one time,
Yep.
tried to get around, and I wondered, did you feel successful in making
So that's
that
what
piece?
what I ended up doing is, well, one, the actual class conferencing note that was supposed to be done on day 2 of the writing lesson according to the curriculum, the questions don't line up with where we're at yet. They line up with when the kids start independently writing their story outside of the organizer.
Okay.
And so I can't actually do that piece until they start doing that. It's questions like, are they using temporal words in their writing? Are they able to add details to write more? And then it's other things like some of the mechanics of, are they using capital
Sure.
letters and periods?
Uh-huh.
In an organizer, I can't check for that because I've got the frame that has the temporal word in there.
Mhm.
We actually didn't even have to encourage full sentences. It's really just get the thought down.
Mhm.
So what I did is I flipped it over on the back and made a 1, 2, 3, 4 chart, and I tallied. And I just tallied when I was walking around who was feeling like they were a 4 on my scale of
Mhm.
they've got this, they kind of know what they're doing, they're on their own. Who was a 3, they're working through it, but I can tell they're still not quite there. Who really is getting a little bit stuck and who hasn't even started. And that is going to help me too for tomorrow. I know who those kids were, and I can, or today.
Right.
And then I can go back and make sure that those kids who are at 1s are ready to have help or have a small group in back, and I can work with
Right.
them. And those kids who are 4s, I'm going to model the switching to the other parts so that they have something they know they can progress to.
So that really helped you to monitor and adjust and make your adjustments for today, and
For today.
even the classroom closure that you did
Mhm.
with the 1, 2, 3, 4 of how do you
Yeah.
feel about your writing,
Yeah.
your organizer, using the temporal words.
And that
Gave
that
you
helped
that.
me. That gave me a lot of feedback. They are feeling much more comfortable with temporal words because when I introduced it on Monday, I made a point of saying, we read our ICANs, and the ICAN was I can use temporal words in my writing, and they all just blurted, "What are those?" And I was like, "Perfect, I'm going to teach you." But now, if I were to say that, they know what I'm talking about.
Well,
they
and
were
I
able
even
to-
said that too. I go,
Such a
what?
weird word.
Explain. I don't know that piece of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
and
right, because it is a weird word.
And it is, and it's one of those that we could use. We could dumb down the phrase and change that I can, but at the same point, that might come up. It's either temporal or with transition words. Either of those will come up.
You're right.
But they'll need to know that word, and that is the word in the 2nd grade standard. Is I can write a personal narrative and use temporal words to sequence my story. They just need to know what they are, and
Right.
once they know what they are, they were able to come up with a list of them very well on their own.
Right.
So that I feel much more secure about. I feel like their knowledge of temporal words is good. Like I said, I want to see it in application. That's that higher level thinking. They can recall them.
Right.
I need them to apply them.
And you even made a connection for them because you kept throwing in the word sequencing, which to me is the word that goes in conjunction with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you
that's
really
what
gave
you
them
use to do that.
that learning tool. Let's see. So you provided lots of feedback for acknowledging a lot of effort. I like your story starters. That's a great story starter. You had your kids using the resources, the word wall, looking in their notebook. You had a lot of them. You gave the reminder. If you get stuck, visualize your